one final question here, which is following up after the interview. So sometimes you don't get a response, sometimes you do. Uh, Walk us through how to follow up after this. What are the steps we have to take?
Yeah, that's great. That's always one of the most, it used to be before the HR departments became so much more involved in interviewing. This was always one of the most difficult questions to answer when students would come to me because, uh, you don't know if the person that's doing the interviewing, if you're calling them right away and pushing, sometimes they get offended at that. They're like, just lay off. Other times, other people would see that as a good sign. And so it was always hard to give one flat answer. Oh, you definitely should be calling right away. Follow up, give it maybe 3 or 4 days and follow up. Because you don't know, it always depended on the person. Um, Now, most of the time, since human resource departments handle most of the screening and this type of stuff, now it's okay to follow up as quickly and as often as you want because the person you're following up to is probably not the one doing the hiring, making the final decision. They're screening and they're staying in between, and they're accustomed to people following up and wanting to know. So if it's the HR department you're dealing with, then I wouldn't try to talk anybody out of following up as soon as you're comfortable with and as often as you're comfortable with, because HR's job is to handle that type of stuff. But if the person that you need to follow up with is the one that's doing the hiring, it's the manager or the team, then it's still a little bit more difficult to discern whether an aggressive response afterward will be off-putting or will be seen as a positive sign. So I think to be safe, go in the middle, find a happy median. I mean, maybe wait, depending on what you understand about the position. Like if there's a lot of people being interviewed, and sometimes they'll let you know that, then you probably want to wait a little bit longer before you follow up. But if you think that there's just a small population of people being interviewed for this position and you're one of two or three, then the time that elapsed before you follow up can be much shorter. It could be within a couple days. And particularly if they leave it open, if they don't tell you, well, you'll hear from us within a week now. If they say that, then, if it goes beyond a week, then you can call them. Yeah, I'm just calling back. You said I'd hear within a week, and it's been a little bit more than a week, and just wanted to make sure that I didn't miss a phone call or an email and how we're doing. So again, that's part of the give and take process that any job search involves. So.
So then to follow up with following up, when you reach back out to them, how do you recommend you do that? Should you call them? Should you email them? I mean, I suppose there's more ways than that, but those are like the two most common.
Yeah, the email is the one that's most easily ignored or set aside. I mean, if you want to make, if let's say you're in a position where and this happens a lot. I get students come to me frequently every spring, and they're weighing two or three jobs, which really is another point that we could spend a minute talking about, because what do you do then? How do you handle that? And once again, my advice is always the best policy is honesty. If you are weighing two or three other jobs, if that's in fact true, then letting them know that. There's nothing wrong with letting them know that, if it's true. Now you want to do it in a way that's courteous and respectful, and you don't want it to come across as like the used car salesman that says, hey, someone else just called me on this car, and if you don't make a decision here in the next 5 minutes, it's going to be gone. That is a ploy that you don't want to be caught employing. in an interview process, because if they sniff that out, then it's, you know, it's bad for you. But if it's really true, then be honest, and you can say, look, I do have another job offer. I'm considering another offer, and I really like the possibility of what the opportunity that you might provide to me, and I'm just wondering how soon you might know for sure, so that I can make a decision. And if that happens, and if you can, if that only needs a couple more days after your interview, then fine, do it. You know.
Yeah, and if I can add on to that, one thing that I encourage all of you to do is to actually follow up. Now, obviously, listen to Dr. King first, go through all those necessary steps and find out if you should be. But here's the fact of the matter, and I think this applies to people my age quite frequently. It's not rude to follow up. Call them and find out where you're at. Like, you're not bothering them. Like, that's their job. So don't be distracted or bothered by that. Go ahead and call them up, and especially call, like Dr. King said, emails get set aside frequently. Now, if you know them personally, you can get away with emailing them, I believe. But believe me when I say a call is far more impactful than an email. But go ahead, give them a call. It's not rude, and you might feel anxious or nervous about it. But if you really want that job, you have every right to go ahead and call them and go ahead and see where you're at. And they will not be upset with you for doing that. Nobody will. And the fact of the matter is, if they do get upset with that, it's another thing you learned about the company. You don't need to work for someone who's not going to give you that time, who's going to give you, like you as an employee, the time to go and find out where you're at, make sure you're comfortable with that company, and make sure that they value you. Because if you're going to put in that time, you should expect it back. But at the end of the day, don't be afraid to call them. Give them a call, see what they have to say. And if they say they need more time, then they need more time. But at least you got that first step done.
I agree 100% and on all of that. Particularly the calling is more impactful for sure. Like I said, the email can be avoided. And particularly nowadays, because in most companies, the HR department is the screener, and that is their job. You know, there is nothing wrong with following up. The only time you have to maybe gauge it is if the person you're following up with is the one doing the hiring. And then that, of course, like I said, depends on other circumstances, like how many other people are in the process and how long it's been and things like that. But you should never be afraid to follow up. It is, after all, your life, right? I mean, this is, anytime you're interviewing for a job, I mean, taking a job is a big deal. It's your life, and there's nothing wrong with it. It's to be expected for you to follow up and be interested.
Yeah. Well, those are some great points. Thank you, Dr. King, for joining me today, for helping everyone here with their future interviews, with maybe current ones they have, which hopefully they get to see your advice before they go in. And I'd like to thank SIBC, Dr. Rogers, who is the professor who oversees this. This is all possible because of her. And also, of course, Benedictine College for making SIBC possible as well. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me, reach out to Dr. King, and of course, any more in-depth questions, please reach out to our Career Services Department and our Student Success Center. They would love to help you. We all would. And I hope that you all have a great day. We look forward to seeing you again for our next video. Make sure to keep checking us out, keep up to date. And thank you so much. Thank you, Dr. King. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Thomas. My pleasure. Great job. You're doing great work. Appreciate it.
Thank you.